Hi guys, welcome back to the next part of Angular 16 tutorial series. I will talk about reactive forms in this video. In the previous video, I talked about template driven forms. So I've created a new project, Reactive Forms, which is the Angular 16 project. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to go to the source app.module.ts, and inside it, I actually need to import forms module, and I also need to import the reactive forms module from angular/forms. All right, so this is actually the forms module, and also we need to add its references in this array imports. All right, that's pretty much it we need to do in this file. Let's close it now. Let's go to our component file and the HTML file. Let's remove everything from here, and inside this component, first of all, I need to actually import few of the reactive forms libraries, the packages. So now first of all, I need to import the form builder, which I will be using to actually create the forms, and then I will be using the form group, and then I will be using the validators. This is for adding the validations directly in our component. Okay, I need to have the forms array form control, but for now let's keep it like this, and this is coming from the angular/forms. All right, and here first of all what I need to do is I need to create a user form variable. This is of type form group. Okay, let's give exclamation mark to make it optional. For now it's asking me to add some values initially, but I don't want to add that. First of all, I'm going to add the constructor private, and then I'm going to give the variable name form builder, and then the form builder, which I've already added above. Okay, so inside this constructor I can actually build this form which I have initialized this variable above. All right, so in order to build this form I can use this form builder, and I can store the form reference in the user form over here. So for that I can actually use this dot user form equals to form builder dot group, and this is has to be this dot form builder. This is to refer this particular object. Okay, so let's close it like this, and inside it let's create the name, and I'm going to give it the validators required to make the name required. Make sure that you watch this video till the end, because I will be also talking about the nested forms here as well, and also I'll be talking about the form array here as well. Okay, so this is a long extensive video which can help you create a long forms as well. Okay, so next I can actually use this email validator. First of all, I'm going to give it the default value, which is going to be the empty. Okay, and after this I can actually write the validators dot required, or I can use another array to add the multiple validations. So I can write the validators dot required, and I can write another validators. If I write dot, you can see that we can have a lot of validations. So this is how the reactive forms comes in. This is why the reactive forms are better than the template driven forms. So I can use the pattern to give it some values for validating the email ID. Okay, so inside it again, just like the last video, I'm going to put the regular expression for the email inside it, and it is automatically going to handle the type and the format of the email when I will be putting up in that form the value. Okay, so for now let's test it for the email and the name, but after this constructor let's create the final form function actually. So submit form. Okay, so here I can actually check if the form is valid or not. So this dot user form dot valid, and I can simply print that form over here. Okay, so console dot this dot user form dot value. Okay, so let's save it now, and for that let's go to our HTML file, and I'm going to create the form. It has slightly different format to actually create the form. So I'm going to create the form element, and I need to provide it the form group. Okay, form group should be matching that variable which I've created here. This is the value, so I can provide the form group value over here. And just like the last video, I can give the ng submit function, and it's going to be the submit form function. For now, I'm not passing anything because I'm automatically fetching the values of the name and email by this user form variable. Okay, so here I can actually write the submit form. All right, and inside it I can actually create two divs, one for the label name and other for the email. Okay, and let's create that. So for the label, I'm going to give the for name to refer the which label is actually targeting to. So this is actually targeting to the name input. Okay, so after this I'm going to create the input of type text, and then name has to be, let's say, of type name, and we can add the id as well if we want to, and add the placeholder as well if we want to. And then the main property that I want to add is the form control name. Okay, so in this value I need to put the name here. This name is actually targeting to this particular key value. Okay, whatever we write over here, it needs to be added directly in the form control name over here, and because of this we will be able to add some validations that we added over here. All right, and I'm going to copy this one. What's the issue? I actually need to end this up like here. Okay, let's copy this one for the email as well. So I'm going to change it the email. Let's change it the email, and I'm going to just copy this, change the values at multiple places. Okay, make sure you have the email same value over here. All right, so let's save it now, and after this I'm going to create another div for the button which is going to be responsible for submitting it. So I'm going to give it the type of submit, and then I can actually add the validations to it like the submit. But for now, let's try to run this, and I'm going to go inside this. So I'm going to write npm run start, and it's going to compile my project and show it in my browser. So once it gets compiled completely, I'm going to refresh it, so you can see that it is currently showing the name email. So let's add the name email. Let's try to submit this for now. So if I click on the submit, it's not actually triggering that because the form is not valid. That's why I think it's actually printing the. Let's try to actually give the correct email ID. Now the email is correct. If I click on the submit, now you can see that it has actually outputted the name and the email over here. So our form validation is working fine. The email validation is working fine over here as well. All right, so the extension of VS Code which I'm using, that prints automatically on the runtime. The output of console log is the console ninja. You can check that out and install it in your VS Code. All right, so now let's try to disable this submit button if the form is invalid. So in my button, I'm going to add the disabled property inside the square brackets. So disabled equals to, I'm going to write user form dot valid. Okay, so this is going to get disabled if the user form is invalid actually. All right, so not valid means invalid. So let's save it. Now you can see that the button is disabled. If I write something over here, you can see that the submit button is still disabled because of the email format. If I write the correct email ID, you can see that now the button is enabled and its values are being printed over here. Perfect. Now we have actually talked about the name and email ID. We actually need to know that how we can create the nested forms here as well now. Let's say we have a field that has further subfields like the address. Address have further subfields like the street, city, house number, apartment number. So we can have the one address fields parallel to these name and email field, and the address field can have further subfields. So for that, I'm going to create the address field over here. Okay, and then I'm going to use this dot form builder again. Okay, and this form builder is going to contain the values for that. So inside it I'm going to create a street, let's say. So it is going to be an empty, and then the validation dot required, and after this I can have the city. Okay, and validation dot required. For now let's keep it simple, so I've added only two properties over here. All right, and now let's go to our form, and in the HTML I'm going to add it in that form. So I'm going to create a div. Okay, and inside that div I'm going to add these input elements. So first of all, below this I'm going to create a div, and inside this I'm going to copy paste these labels two times. Okay, I don't want to create separate divs for these two, just to see and make sure that these are the common sub values. So first of all I'm going to give it this div is going to have a form group again. So form group name equals to, and this form group name is equals to address, just like I added form group over here, but that's the parent form group. And here I'm actually adding the form group name, which is referring to this is the sub form builder for that form of the user. Okay, and then I'm going to add the for, which is the street, and this is referring to the street. All right, and this is going to be of type text. Let's add the name and ID is equal to street over here, and the form control name is going to be street as well. All right, and then I'm going to have add this city button here. So for that I'm going to add the city over here. Okay, let's update that. City is going to be of the text as well, email city, and then the city, this is going to be the capital city. All right, let's save it, and now you can see that this is the sub form which have been created. I have not actually created the separate div because I wanted to be in the same row, just to see that this is the nested values. All right, now let's see if the validation is working fine or not. I'm going to add the correct email over here. Now you can see that the submit button is not enabled, so these sub values are working fine here. Let's try to add the street here, and let's try to add the city. All right, so now our validation is working fine as well for the sub form values as well. If I click on the city submit button, now you can see that we have this email, we have this name, and we have another object called the address, and this object contains further types over here. So this is how we can add the further child sub values using the nested forms by adding this form builder dot group again into the parent form builder. All right, the next topic I want to talk about is the form array. Form array, that if there is some value that have the multiple values in it, let's say phone number, one user can have multiple phone numbers, 2 3 4 5. One user can have multiple subjects. Okay, one user can have multiple siblings. Okay, so first of all I'm going to use the example of phone numbers. So for that I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to add phone numbers, and I'm going to use this dot form builder, not a group, but I'm going to add an array. Okay, and this is going to be taking an array like this. All right, and this is going to be like this dot form builder dot control. All right, and in this control it is going to be an empty at the start, and it's going to have some validations. So the first validations I can pass it like the validators dot required. Next validation I want to add validation dot numbers. So let's say that I want to make it valid if there are around 10 integers in our text box. All right, so here I'm going to add this parentheses actually. So let's save it, and now we have actually built our form for use by using the form builder array, and we can actually pass this value multiple values. So it is going to be of type array when we are going to print this over here. All right, but for that we need to create few more stuff. For the validations, we can have built-in custom validations as well. So below this constructor, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to actually create a get phone numbers functions. Okay, this is just to show you that what are the different options we have while we are building the form. Okay, so now I'm going to return this dot user form dot get, and this is going to take the phone numbers, the name of that property, and I need to give the type to it as the form array. Okay, this form array has to be added at the top, which is automatically added over here. All right, and we can use this phone number to actually get the values of this form for a particular phone number. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable the text box from the UI, that whenever I want to add a new number, I want to show as much number of text boxes as I want in the form. So this is gonna help you to understand how we can create the dynamic forms as well. Okay, but first of all, let's go ahead in our HTML, and inside it I'm going to actually create another div outside it. So I'm going to create this div, and this is going to be just like the form group name. I have the form array name over here, so form array name. Okay, and then I have this phone numbers, which is the variable name over here, the key number, phone numbers here. All right, so after this div I can have another div, and I've already shown you a directive ng for. I'm gonna loop through all the properties that how many phone numbers are needs to be added. So I'm going to write the let any variable name, so I'm going to name it phone control name, and then off I'm going to give the phone numbers dot controls. Okay, let's get the index as well if we want. And inside this div, this is going to be iterated again and again, as much number of times these phone numbers dot controls actually exists in this particular form. So inside it I can actually add the label. So label, this is going to be the phone number. I can add the I+1. This is going to show that how many phone numbers are needs to be added, and then I can add the type equals to text. Here I don't need to add the name here, and then I can add the form control name, and this is going to take this one, form control name equals to that index. Okay, we need to have some generic values and unique values for each of these input elements. That's why I have initialized that I index from that form. After this I can use the button type equals to button, and then I'm going to use the click, and I actually need to create a function in my component. So let's first create that component. So for that I'm just going to give it the remove. So if I mistakenly add a new input element over here, the text box, I should be able to remove that here. All right, and after this I can have another div for the button to actually add a phone number. Okay, so I'm going to create another div, and I can have another button over here. So I just need to copy that. Let's add this button, and it's going to have the add phone number. Add phone number. Let's also add this one, remove phone number. Okay, so I'm going to add the references for the function. So I'm going to add the remove phone number. I'm going to pass the index, and I'm going to add phone number. I'm going to pass that. I don't need to pass anything to it because it will be automatically appended to that. All right, so I don't think I need to add anything else inside it. Let's add the colon over here to make it look a bit nice. We have this phone numbers controls. Now let's save it. and it's going to throw an error because we don't have these functions added in our component. Let's create these components in our this one, the function. So first of all, we have this remove phone number. Okay, and this is going to take an index of type number, and what it's going to do is it's going to actually add the phone numbers, remove the phone number complete control from that. So phone numbers dot remove at, which is the property of the JavaScript. All right, so just like the remove property, we can add the add phone number over here. So let's replace the remove by add, and it is not receiving anything, and then I can actually use the push button. So phone numbers dot push. So this is going to be using the form builder dot control, and this is going to be an empty string, and then I can add the validators separately. So validator dot required, and then validators dot pattern, and this is going to take the parentheses, and I can actually pass the same pattern which I added over here. All right, so there shouldn't be any error now. If I save it, now you can see that we have one text box automatically showing up. We have this name, the submit button is disabled. So if we want to add the 5 phone numbers, let's say I want to add, let's fill this up. Email is valid, state and the city have been added. Phone number should be of the 10 digits. So we can have the 345 1 2 3 4 5 2. All right, so this is added, the 10 digits have been added. Now you can see that the submit button is enabled. If I want to add a new phone number, and now you can see that I'm able to add the new phone number over here. So let's add a new phone number. The submit is enabled. If I just remove it, you can see that submit is disabled, so the validation is working perfectly. If I want to add a new number and I want to remove that, you can see submit is disabled because this field is empty. Let's remove it. Now you can see that we are able to remove that particular field here as well. If I try to add another number, we can actually add that. If I want to submit it now you can see that we have these values submitted, and we have this phone numbers of type array. All right, so we have an array of strings, and each string value is containing the phone numbers. This is working perfectly as we required. So in this video I have shown you how we can add a simple reactive form using the form builder, add the nested form builder, and add the form array using the reactive forms. I hope that you have liked this video. If you have liked it, don't forget to subscribe my channel, hit the like button. Thank you so much for watching, guys. See you in the next video.